Using alert for things like file save, it can be a little bit noisy and can slow users down. Instead, we can use Toast and Snackbar. This allows the users to have, information that something was saved, updated, etc. Toast and Snackbars, these appear briefly, they don't steal focus, and they reinforce success or failure without breaking the flow. So today I'll show you how to create your own custom Toast, pop-up here. I'll also show you a really lightweight API that we can use to quickly show successes, errors, or even these little warning messages. And at the very end, I'll show you how to quickly make inline error messages, perfect for forms or, when you're logging into a website and you need to have a username or password present. So if you're wanting to learn how to create these in your SwiftUI app, let's go ahead and dive on in. Okay, let's talk about first creating our own custom toast. So we're going to set up the UI to call the toast, and then we'll quickly create it. So I would recommend having a state private var that's going to control whether or not the toast is being shown or not. So I would just call it something like show toast. If you're using this to show the user that something's saved, maybe you can name it something like show save toast or something. And we're going to have this set to be a Boolean value, off default false. We want to be able to trigger this to true and then display that message to the user. In our VStack, I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of our kind of placeholders here. And I'll just call this one toast. Now you can trigger these toasts any number of ways. Maybe this is when a user reaches a certain score, some condition happens in your app, for demonstration purposes, and also those kind of work really well with buttons. I'm going to create a save item button. Now within this button is where we'll call that function. We're going to go ahead and create that function in just a moment, but we'll just give it the name now, show toast with animation. Also give it a little bit of button styling, because why not? I always do the button sizzling apparently. I'll do my bordered prominent. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to have kind of this animation and auto hiding enabled. So we're going to create a function. So we're going to go down before the last brace of our structure here, and we'll create that private func. We're going to call it the show toast with animation. And we don't need anything within the parameters. Instead here, we're going to have our show toast equals true. And then we're going to be using our good friend dispatch queue in order to hide that toast after a few seconds. So we can do our dispatch queue.main.async. And we're going to choose the after and the deadline. Now we don't need this execute. Instead, for the deadline, let's go ahead and set this to be a timer. I'm going to set it to be now. So it's going to start the timer as soon as it kind of gets the switch flipped. And then we're going to do +2. So this is essentially going to start the timer. And then after 2 seconds, we'll add our brace. What do we want to have happen after the 2 seconds? Well, we're going to have the show toast equals false. So this is essentially going to flip it to true. After 2 seconds, it's then going to flip it back over to false. We don't want that toast to be up forever. Okay, before we show the toast overlay, we do need to create it. Now you can create everything within this content view if you'd like. However, I'd recommend just creating a new Swift file and we can call it ToastView. So I'm going to right click on the project navigator on the left side. And we're going to create a new file from template. We'll be choosing our SwiftUI view. We're going to call it ToastView. We want this to be able to pop up on the screen. And I'm going to set it up in a way that we'll actually be able to reuse this in any other project that we'd like to down the line. So I'm going to create some variables. The first one's going to be a title, which is a string value. I'm also going to include a system image because I want it to kind of look like a label, right? It's nice to kind of have these where, we can have like a little plus sign or like error symbol or something, right? And this is going to allow it to be something that we can change down the line. So I'm going to set this to be a string value, and I'm going to provide the info.circle.fill as the default value here. Last but certainly not least, I'm also going to include a tint, which is going to be a color. And I'm going to have this equal .blue for default. Again, I'm doing all of this so then down the line, we can actually change this and reuse this in any one of our projects. Okay, let's go ahead and add our kind of stubs for conformance, and I'll say test pop up. If you do want to add a default, you totally can as well for the title. Otherwise, I'm just going to pass through the title within the preview to solve that error. Okay, now within our view, we're going to create a VStack, and this is where all the information on our pop-up is going to appear. I'm going to immediately put a spacer, and then you can either do a label or an H-stack. I'm just going to do an H-stack, and I'm going to have an image, and I'm going to pass through the system name, which is just that system image we had created before. I'm going to set the image scale to be large. Then I'm going to pass through the text of our title. Again, you can hard code all of this, but I want to create something that I can reuse down the line. Let's make this maybe a callout, and maybe we can also bold it. Something you might also want to do is include a line limit for these toasts, because we do want them to be kind of smaller and lightweight. And we can see here at the bottom of our screen, we do have our little information circle. Might just take a second for our text to get populated there. Test pop-up, perfect. From here, and this is why I wanted to use HTAC, but of course, use whatever you want, labels, images, etc. This is where we can apply all of that different customization. I would really recommend always including a little bit of padding, whether you want to do horizontal or vertical. I'm going to apply some vertical to mine, set this to be 12. Now we can also set the foreground style, and I'm going to set this to be white. Then from here, I'm going to set my background. From here, I'm going to have a tint, and I'm going to use actually a gradient. And from here, I'm going to have this be within a rounded rectangle with a corner radius, because I love corner radius. Let's do 16. And we can also include a style. And for this one, I'm going to do dot continuous. Seems as though we need a little bit more padding, because our we can see here in the bottom right, our test pop-up, it's a little bit cursed. So I'm going to add some padding for the horizontal. And we can fine tune this. Let's try 12 for this as well. I think that looks pretty good. Of course, customize all of these things to your heart's content. I think there's some fun things that we could do with shadow. Let's add a radius of, I don't know, 12 and a y of 6. Now it'll stand out a little bit more. Otherwise, the next part I would probably want to include is the accessibility. Let's have this be the accessibility element. And I'm going to choose the one with children. And from here, I'm going to do the dot combine, so it's all wrapped up together. And then we can include the accessibility label. And for that, it would just be the text of passing through that title value. Okay, the other big thing I would choose to include here is either a frame or allow hits testing. Now what allow hits testing does, it's actually a Boolean flag. And if we set this to be false, it means it won't block taps behind. So essentially, if we had a button behind this pop-up and we were to tap it, this little pop-up wouldn't be blocking that button. If it was set to true, then it would be blocking anything that it's in front of. Okay, so let's hop back on over to our content view, and now we'll be able to actually populate it with that toast overlay. Right now, we're just flipping the Boolean value and nothing's really happening. So because we're using a Boolean, we can actually use an if statement. So if show toast, so this means if it's true when it's activated. Let's go ahead and activate our toast view. And again, this is also why I want to make it modular, because we can actually pass through all this information. Now, currently only the title is required. So if I were to do this, we'd see saved, that kind of pops up. Now it's pushing everything to the top right now. So what we might want to do is actually add a spacer or use a Z-stack. So if I add a spacer down here, we notice it doesn't push anything up anymore. But what I'd recommend doing is let's actually wrap our V-stack within a Z-stack here, Z-stack, whatever you want to call it. You can, of course, organize your UI however you'd like. Let's say I really like this blue, but maybe I want to just change the system image. So I would do the checkmark dot circle dot fill. I think that's the one. Yep, and there we go. And of course, I can also change that tint as well. Maybe we'll make this one green. And there we go. We have full control on how we kind of call and edit this toast view. So what I suggest doing is after the toast view here, still within the kind of brackets, is I would add a couple properties. The first one I would do is a transition. I would suggest maybe move with the edge. Let's have it be bottom because we're currently populating it from the bottom. And then I would do the dot combined with, and then maybe opacity. Now we'll see, kind of pops up. And then I would, after that, include a Z index. I know I'm Canadian, I say Z. And this is going to set its, kind of index number to 1, allowing it to pop over other items. And if we want a really, really smooth in or out process, let's go ahead and go down all the way to the end of our Z stack here. And let's add a animation. You can do whatever you want with this animation. I think for mine, I'm gonna maybe use the spring animation, but you can use whatever you want. So I'm gonna do the dot spring. I'll have my response. Let's do 0.35. Damping fraction, maybe 0.9. I believe it's a double. And then we'll have it be based on the value of show toast. This should add a little kind of pop-up animation, and then it's going to kind of fall down. Okay, it kind of falls down pretty quick. Play around with those numbers, play around with how you want it to look and feel. Again, maybe have this based on when you successfully change your profile picture or update a username, right? This is something that's not supposed to be intrusive. Again, if there's something behind this, we'd still be able to interact with it. So really quick, lightweight messages. All right, now I want to talk about what I would call the easy button, which is using a package, an API, in order to do a lot of the heavy lifting for us. Now, I will put a link for this GitHub in the description below, but this is the AlertToast kind of package here. Now, we're going to go ahead and copy this GitHub link because we're going to be adding it with Swift Package Manager. So once Xcode's back open, let's go ahead and add a package dependency. We'll go ahead and paste it in the URL. Take a second or two to load. It's really lightweight. It should take like 1 second to be added to your, yeah, see, it's added to Xcode like instantly. Super duper lightweight. But this is going to allow us to really access a built-in custom AlertToast library. Now there's a lot of these different AlertToast library, and I'm even going to be making a video on pop-up view, but this one is super duper good for our purposes today. So I'm going to create a new SwiftUI view here. I'm going to go ahead and call it API demo. Cool, so to use this, and of course there is documentation available on the GitHub, but we're going to be importing AlertToast. From here we're going to create another state private var. Let's call this one showing toast. Have it equal false off of rip. And then we need to populate the body. Let's just add some text. And then again, we'll add a button, but feel free to handle this logic however you'd like. So just like before, we're going to set our showing toast, that Boolean value, to equal true whenever we press the button. Then what we can do is we can add the dot toast, similar to how we do the dot alert. And again, this is from the API. We can use the autofill to really make our lives easier. And it's going to be based off of the binding of showing toast. I don't need an alert here, so I'm just going to get rid of that in the autofill. There, I'm going to add a brace. We're going to reference alert toast with a capital A and T. From here, we're going to include the type. There's even alert style. Use the autofill to kind of explore some more things. We can see that we can have it be an alert, banner, or on the HUD. So let's set it to be alert. For the type, let's have it be let's do complete. For the color, we can even choose the custom color. I think green goes well with completing. And we can also include a title, which I'm going to do saved. But you can even see with the dot notation, there's tons and tons of options here. Let's go ahead and test it out. As we can see here, we have this little checkmark box that kind of pops up and says saved. Wonderful. This is one line, a toast modifier that presents it. We can also change, the different types. You don't actually even need the display mode. But let's say we wanted to have something else. Maybe we'll do an error. And I think red's pretty good with errors. There we go, we get that kind of X that pops up. You can even choose a custom one with image. I actually also really like the loading one. I think it's actually pretty good because it gives you that little progress view. The only thing is this one lasts a really long time because we don't really have a way to turn it off currently, so it's just going to hang out forever. Okay, I'm going to talk about a few more things. As I mentioned, there was the display mode. Now for this one, there's alert, banner, and HUD. I think HUD is really great here. So let's do one with HUD, and let's actually do a system image. Let's do the exclamation mark. Oh, how do you even spell that? Exclam. I think that's it. Could always just use the library and cheat. Well, not really cheat, more like make my life a lot easier. Okay, so this is going to be a HUD, and we're going to have like a little thing that comes up from the top, and we can see there's a little error. If we want to also include a title with this one, probably be a good idea. And we can say, you know, low storage. There we go, low storage. Oh, if I could spell straight storage. We can add a comma, and we can even also add a subtitle, maybe delete photos or something. So when we pop it up, we get that little kind of subtitle that pops up underneath. There's tons of different things that you can do with this really lightweight API. Would recommend. If we didn't want to do HUD and we wanted to have it more be of an alert, pop up in the middle. If your toast look weird like mine, make sure you wrap up the content in the VStack and then have the toast outside of that. So now it'll actually look a lot more proper. Okay, so that's the alert. I was like, why does it look so cursed? And then we can also do the banner as well. And from here we can set where our banner, where we want to kind of come from. You can do the pop, or you could do the slide. It kind of slides on in there. Pretty cool. Let's go ahead and do the pop. Ooh, kind of pops up from there. There we go. So there's tons of different customizations you can do with this really lightweight API. Also, before I forget, for this toast view, would totally recommend kind of either saving it as its own Swift file or highlighting all the code and then create code snippet. And you can call it custom toast view, all to have lightweight up over. Right, and then now you can use this in any of your projects on Xcode. Okay, let's quickly talk about inline errors. I showed them off briefly in my form validation video, but this is how we can kind of show a message if we try to, you know, log in without a valid password. You know, maybe we need certain capitals or characters, or a field needs to be full before we can progress. So what I would do is I'd create a state private var, one of our favorites, and I'd have this be, you know, maybe something like show error. And again, by default, this should be something that is false. So here I have a profile form with a name and a save button. And when I press the save button, I want to trigger an error that says, hey, you need to have something within this name field. What I would do is within the logic of, you know, maybe saving with the button, is I would have our show error, and I'd have it equal the name.trimming characters, and choose the option within. And from here, because I'm looking for the white spaces in new lines, I'm going to go ahead and apply that. Outside the bracket, I'm going to look at the is empty. So this is basically going to say, okay, when the text field here is empty, show the error. I'm going to flip that Boolean value to trigger that if this text field is empty. So after the text field, I would create an if show error, and I would, just for safety, do a double ampersand, the name dot, just as we did before, trimming characters in the white space in new lines dot is empty. Go ahead and add a brace. So whenever our show error is true, and you know, we can double check by making sure that this text field is completely empty. This is also really great for multiple text fields, multiple things you might be checking for errors on. Let's go ahead and create an HStack. You can also do a label, and I'm going to go ahead and display some text. I'm going to say text, you know, name can't be empty. And let's set the foreground style to be red, and maybe the font to be caption and bold. So now if we press save with the name being empty, name can't be empty. If I were to type in some text here and hit save, we're good, right? In an actual form, you'd want to perform those save actions. You can add an image too. Again, you can also use a label just to make it more clear to the user. And as I type here, it will go away because it's like, oh, hey, it's no longer empty. I'd also recommend adding some accessibility elements. And for the children, once again, I would combine them and I would add the accessibility label. And we can include the text of error name cannot be empty. So this pattern is way calmer than an alert. If I were to try to, you know, just press this and an alert pops up, it's a little bit intrusive. The message lives right next to the text field that needs attention as well. If you had multiple of these, you can clearly find which one still needs some help. So you can still use those alerts for any high stakes blocking of those decisions, but you can use those toasts, those snack bars that we kind of created for quick, more ephemeral statuses like saved, copied, running out of storage. Use those inline messages we just created for form guidance and validation. So keep those toasts that we had created really short. Like I said, we kind of had this be for 2 seconds. 1 to 2 seconds is pretty good. Avoid stacking too many as well. Don't block taps. So in our toast view, we had to use the allows. Oh, why is this allows tightening? What? It should be allow hit testing. When did that change? What? Did I have it as allow tightening? I apologize if I had it as allow tightening. It should be allow hit testing. Anyways, we had set that to be false. We don't block taps with this pop-up. I don't know how that happened. And then we're going to also respect motion. So consider using opacity transitions. I kind of dragged ours off the screen. You can also add the accessibility labels to toast and inline states. You can try both. The library approach. We'll also eventually be creating a video on pop-up view, which kind of takes what we created today and the library we used today to the next level. So if you enjoyed today's video, like, comment, subscribe, dream big, code bigger, and have a great day. Oh, also the sample project will be in the description below.